In today's episode, Heidi asks, what are the major social media tools you use? Gosh, that's a big question. I think probably the easiest way to roll all this together would be looking at the tools by role, because there's so many of them. And with the understanding that I approach social media a little differently than most people. It's a data source for me first, and then secondarily a platform for communication. So I think that's an important distinction to make. For the data side of things, data science and data sources, the big tools there are going to be CrowdTangle from Facebook, which is still available if you were grandfathered into the accounts, but it's a really rich data source. It allows you to download large quantities of data from Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. Talkwalker, which is a monitoring tool, but also just a really, really good source of data from all the major networks, blogs, forum, some stuff on the web, really, really powerful, and very generous in the amount of data it can give you. The individual social networks themselves, particularly their APIs. I use the Twitter API a ton, and it is, again, very robust, gives you a lot of data. I think I probably pulled, if I had to guess, probably about 11 or 12% of every single Prime Day tweet, which is in the hundreds of thousands of tweets from the Twitter API. The GDELT project from Google, from the Google News Initiative, is a huge, massively huge database of news that gives you URLs, gives you news impact and stuff. Really terrific, very, very powerful. Not really a great user interface, but it doesn't have to be. You get a BigQuery database, and you have to know how to use it in order to get data out of it. But if you want a comprehensive list of all the news happening in near real time, like in 15-minute intervals, you can't beat it. And then, of course, for processing all of this, I use the R programming language and RStudio, which is a moderately friendly user interface, but really robust in terms of all the things it can do to help make processing all this data easier. On the management side, for managing my social media accounts, Agorapulse is my tool of choice there. Again, lets you connect everything, lets you schedule stuff in bulk, which is very useful. I wrote a lot of custom code to create content for social media, for publishing in particular. So there's a SQL database that I have that pulls in news and blogs and stuff, and then scores them based on content that I want to be sharing on my accounts, and then that spits out files, batch files for Agorapulse that I can then just load, and then once a week refresh, top up the accounts, and then they have a week's worth of content. I did that because I got tired of spending hours a week curating content, when really it's a very repetitive task that machines can do 80% as well, 90% as well as a person, but that's more than good enough to trade hours a week for 15 minutes a week. All the different messaging apps for managing your social media, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, all this stuff, and all the native platform apps, particularly on mobile devices, because it's just easiest to do one-offs on those apps. And then for content creation, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. I do use Adobe Creative Cloud, particularly Photoshop, an awful lot, and Adobe Audition for editing audio. So for things like podcasts, it's an invaluable tool. I use Techsmith Camtasia. In fact, I'm using it right now to record these videos because for me, it's just the right balance of powerful and easy to use, right? Like iMovie, it's too easy to use, not enough features, too inflexible. Adobe Premiere is, it's like taking a Harrier to the grocery store. It's just not a good fit most of the time. It's absolutely the gold standard for really big video projects, but not for day-to-day stuff. So Camtasia sits right in the middle between those two. Good enough nonlinear editor, good features, still can get in, get out, and get done quickly. Techsmith Snagit for screen captures and for making animations, particularly GIF animations, is super useful. AIVA is an AI tool for generating music, so a lot of the intro and outro music in the content I create is machine generated because It's royalty free. You never have to pay for it. You pay for the membership to AIVA, but then you don't have to pay like royalties and things, which is always useful. Make sure you never get sued. Otter.ai is a transcription service. Again, use it every single day with these posts. Take these videos and turn them into transcripts and stuff. The Joplin app, which is, if you're familiar with Evernote, Joplin is an open source version of that, and that is where I keep a lot of my notes, a lot of my day-to-day publishing stuff gets stored in there, a lot of my writing for things like newsletters and for longer social posts. My daily pandemic newsletter I write in Joplin. And finally, on the contents side, the Levelator app, which is a one-click, maybe 2 clicks, leveling software that can fix a multitude of audio sins when you're doing recordings. So especially for podcasts. And then, I forgot, StreamYard. We use StreamYard for live streaming for the Trust Insights live show. And all of these tools, they all have to work together in some fashion. They all have to be, support data import, data export, be able to measure things well. For the content creation stuff, has to support as many different formats as feasible and reasonable. So there's a lot of tools I've looked at over the years that don't fit into my workflow. Just because I don't use them doesn't mean they're bad. It's just that either they cost too much, or they don't work with how I like to work. So I think that's an important distinction. When you're building your social media technology stack, it's not a question necessarily of the best-in-class software for every given job you're trying to do. It is more making sure it works the way you work. There's a lot of tools that are intuitive for some people, not intuitive for others. Even something as silly as like when Facebook rolled out its new user interface, a lot of people were like, what in the world is this thing? And understandably so. It was a major change. The new interface functions more like a mobile app in a lot of ways. And there's some stuff from the old interface that I miss because it fit my workflow better. This is not the case in the new one. So when you're deciding about tools for your social media technology stack, make sure that they work with how you work. They work with how your team works. That's another important thing about a lot of the tools I mentioned here is many of them do support like teams and multiple users. Some of them don't. Some of them are single user things that you might have to share a login for and stuff. So know your requirements before you start shopping. Make sure you write them down. Like, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, this would be nice to have. It needs to fit in this budget amount. And that will give you a better sense of what works for you. Regardless of what company you work for, there will be some tools that you'll just take with you from job to job that provide you a lot of power or just fit the way you personally work, and don't leave those behind. If you change jobs or change companies, don't be afraid to take your stuff with you, even if it's just managing your own personal social media accounts, because some tools just work the way you work. So if you've got questions, leave them in the comments box below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.